Hello, team players. You want to play a master of stealth and deception? Or maybe you just want a build that can stay out of the public eye in both combat and out of combat. Well, today's build was inspired by this comment over on my Discord server. So, if you're interested in talking to me and other team players, you can check that out in the description below. Anyway, today we're building the Shadow Spy. Let's dive in. So for today's ancestry, we're building a Whisper Elf. Being able to seek in a 60-foot cone rather than a 30-foot cone is going to help us against other spies. And of course, anyone else enemy-wise who wants to be stealthy. And for our class, we're going to be going with the Thief Rogue. This build is mostly about stealthing around in the enemy base, and possibly overhearing things that the enemies might not want us to overhear. However, we do need to be able to do something in combat. So the Thief Racket will let us use our dex for something more than our armor class and our skills. That, of course, being damage, as we really don't need our strength at all for this build. The starting stats for this build should be Strength 10, Dexterity 18, Constitution 10, Intelligence 14, Wisdom 10, and Charisma 16. We will, of course, talk about why we need high Charisma a bit later in this video. But if you've seen my last video, you can probably guess why. For our first class feat at level 1, we're going to be taking Nimble Dodge. Remember that this build is not meant for combat. But if we do get into combat, then we can use this to get a +2 to our armor class. It is only against a single attack, but it's better than nothing. For our first ancestry feat, we're either going to need to take Share Thoughts or Otherworldly Magic. Whichever one you don't pick here, you're going to want to pick in the general feats. If you pick up Otherworldly Magic here, you're going to want to pick up either Detect Magic or an Illusion spell. Which one ultimately depends on your campaign. If you don't have a team member that can cast Detect Magic, then pick up Detect Magic here. But we're going to be going with one of the illusion cantrips we're not going to get later. Or maybe an enchantment cantrip if you're not really in combat all that much in your campaign. For level 2, we're going to start with Underhanded Assaults. This allows us to do our sneak attack damage even if we're not hidden and there's no one to really flank with, making this a great option for combat. Unfortunately, we can't take our Captivator dedication yet, so we're going to need a different dedication. So we'll be taking the Alter Ego dedication. This allows us to disguise ourselves and gain information that way rather than using magic, which will not always be available to us. And of course, for our level 3 general feats, we will want to take Ancestral Paragon, and we're going to pick the feat we didn't pick at level 1. If you take Share Thoughts here, then the feat itself isn't that important. What is important, however, is the feat that we're going to take later that has this as a prerequisite, which I'll talk about later. And of course, we are going to need the standard Die Hard Toughness and Canny Acumen this time for our Fortitude saves. And finally, our last general feat is going to be True Perception. Having constant true seeing is just way too good for this build. For our level 4 feat, we're going to be taking Dread Striker. We're going to have good charisma, so intimidation is something we can do. We also might be able to cast the Fear spell later on. And keep in mind that this is frightened for any reason. So we get this even if our allies frighten the foe, which is pretty awesome in my book. And then of course, we need to take Fake It Till You Make It. We are going to be trained in a lot of skills. However, there's always that chance that we don't have a skill that we need to assume a role. So this will give us that if we need it, and give us a +1 if we already have it. And we're also going to need 2 skill feats for this build. Where on the list will help us get our allies into places that they normally wouldn't be able to go to, and In Plain Sight will let us use Deception instead of Stealth if we need to avoid notice. And for our level 5 Ancestry feat, we're just going to go with Nimble Elf to help us with our speed. For Teamwork Report number 1, unfortunately we don't have our magic yet. We're going to here shortly once we get to level 6, however. But until then, we're going to have to rely on non-magical means of staying hidden. This basically means your standard take cover, hide, stealth, all that good stuff. We can, however, infiltrate public events thanks to our alter ego dedication, which is an important part of a spy's job. The way this build functions in combat is pretty much like any other thief rogue. Get that flat-footed and that sneak attack as much as you can. That means hiding, flanking, and even fearing opponents. Of course, we can also sneak up on enemies that our allies are engaging, even if they previously observed us, thanks to underhanded assault. At this level, you're going to want to use your rogue side of things for combat and everything else for sneaking around and spying on people. At level 6, Anticipate Ambush will help us with other stealthy enemies. And of course, this is where we'll take our Captivator dedication, giving us 2 innate occult cantrips of the Illusion or Enchantment School. Like with all the spells in this archetype, you can pretty much pick what you want here. All of them are going to be helpful, but particularly illusion spells like Invisibility. Then Nimble Roll will allow us to use Nimble Dodge on reflex saves, but more importantly, will let us move if the target critically fails their attack roll or we critically succeed on the saving throw. Basically, we can roll right into cover, essentially. And basic Captivator spellcasting will give us even more innate spells. For our level 9 Ancestry feat, we're going to pick up Elf Step to get us out of those sticky situations with melee attackers. Then we're also going to need Precise Debilitations. This will help us do more precision damage when we sneak attack, or even better, make the foe flat-footed to everyone instead of just us. And Captivating Intensity will give us even more innate spells. Inspired Stratagem will allow us to give each of our allies advantage on 1 roll per day. Honestly, I feel like this one should be one that every rogue should take. It's pretty busted. For heightened captivation, we probably want to pick something like Invisibility here. But honestly, just pick one of your favorites to heighten. For our level 13 Ancestry feat, we're going to take Otherworldly Acumen. We don't want to pick Invisibility for this since we can't heighten it. But otherwise, you can pick what you want for this innate spell. Spring from the Shadows is just a move and attack for 1 action, making it great action economy. And of course, we also need Expert Captivator Spellcasting for more innate spells. Then for level 16, we'll be taking Blank Slate. Because the last thing we want in this build is for people to be able to scry on us, or even worse, see through our illusions. And of course, this is where we take Master Captivator Spellcasting for even more innate spells. Our last Ancestry feat for this build is going to be Sense Thoughts. Remember Share Thoughts? Well, this is why we need it. Mind Reading as an innate spell is going to help this build a ton, as enemies won't always say the information that we need. Next up is Perfect Distraction. This is our last-ditch effort to get away, should it come to that. And if you've got Captivator spells that need to be sustained, then Effortless Captivation is what you want to take here. Otherwise, you'll want to take something from your Alter Ego archetype here, depending on your campaign. And finally, for level 20, Reactive Distraction will allow you to make a decoy take a hit instead of you. And lastly, we definitely want to take Look Again here, because making an opponent save twice is always a good effect. So, for Teamwork Report number 2, now that we have magic, we're a heck of a lot better in combat than we were at level 5. We can take awesome illusion and enchantment spells that are built for combat, such as Fear and Phantasmal Killer. We can also cast 4th level Invisibility, allowing us to stay invisible even when we attack. But we might also want to take the 2nd level version, because that's more useful when we're scouting around. Also, if you don't have Captivator spells that need sustaining, you could also take Heightened Captivation again at that level and just pick a different spell. It's all going to depend on your GM and your campaign. But remember, once you hit these spells, you're stuck with them, which means you need to think strategically when picking these spells. But of course, if you're a subscriber of the channel, you know this already. If you're not a subscriber, then you should know that the goal of this channel is to show you that it's not the feats and spells you pick, it's how you use them in combat and out of combat that makes Pathfinder 2e work. It's also meant to show you how you can work as a team with your other party members, which is hugely important in this system. But anyway, I do want to thank Underhill for being a channel member. You're fantastic. And if you're interested in building a character like this with me once a month, then become a channel member. You can also check out my Discord and other links in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my content. And if you want to learn more about the Captivator archetype, you can check out this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital.